Well, the ANC's National Working Committee is believed to be in a meeting right now, discussing the issue of their suspected Secretary-General Ace Magashule. Over the weekend, President Ramaphosa said Magashule's conduct in trying to suspend him as leader of the ANC was unprecedented. The National Executive Committee of the ANC had said Magashule should apologize. Magashule has taken the party to court. Let's speak now to the analyst, Professor Matabisi at the University of the Free State. Professor Matabisi, good afternoon to you. So, Magashule has refused to apologize. He's taken the ANC to court. How do you think the National Working Committee is going to see it? Do you think that he's winning friends and influencing people?
Good afternoon, Stephen, and good afternoon to the viewers. I think what is very important is that Magashule have actually made the work of the ANC much easier. And we should understand perhaps why do I even come in like that. I thought that Ace Magashule, some of the pronouncements that he made during his press conference, that he will come out and at least apologize and abide by some of the decisions, which is in the public domain. The decisions that the ANC have taken, like, for instance, don't go and support people who appear in court in the name of the African National Congress. But what he is doing, he is appealing a decision that had been taken by the ANC, but yet at the end of the day, he completely continued to disregard some of the basic fundamental rules of the African National Congress. And that's why I say he is actually making it very easy for the African National Congress to institute disciplinary measures against him and perhaps ultimately expelling.
Well, I mean, this is the thing. There's some reporting that, in fact, some members of the National Working Committee might argue that Magashule should be expelled. Do you think it can go that far?
Yeah, no, but I think, and for the very first time, for me, remember, I'm a sociologist, and we always look at all these issues that most commentators perhaps do not focus on. For the very first time, you had President, and remember, President Ramaphosa has been very cautious. And I thought that over the weekend when they asked him a question, or last week, towards the end of last week, that we will say, oh no, I'm not going to make any pronouncement. But he came out and said, no, it's a matter in front of the ANC and action will be taken against the SG. So for the very first time, bold statements coming from the African National Congress. Yes, for me, I can't see that the ANC can't take such strong steps against the SG. Because everything points to that he continuously disregards the decisions of the African National Congress, the decision that he once was a custodian during the so-called Zuma regime.
Could Magashule still apologize? I mean, again, City Press reporting that some of his supporters were suggesting that he do that. If he were to apologize, withdraws court action, would that avoid extreme action against him?
No, well, I think it will be too late if he even apologized today. It will be too late. But remember, the African National Congress is a democratic organization. And what I don't understand, people like Tony Yengeni coming out and say, but now suddenly it seems as if certain voices are not being heard. The ANC have always been like that. How many times have the former Secretary-General not been reined in? Gwede Mantashe, he will come out, make a pronouncement, but afterwards you will have to come and apologize because he was reined in. The majority rules within the African National Congress. South Africa is a constitutional democracy, and so is the ANC. If the majority have taken a decision, whether you don't like that decision, they need to abide by that. And that's why I foresee a situation where the African National Congress now need to take a strong stance against corruption, against ill discipline, and when are they going to do that? And they've got a wonderful opportunity, and unfortunately it's their SG, one of their most senior members, who unfortunately will have to bear the brunt of their so-called step-aside decision.
It's very easy, and I mean, a lot of people have suggested that Ace Magashule has only refused to apologize because of ego, and that essentially he's refusing because he's too proud. And I mean, I can understand that analysis, but is it also not true that in politics, if you apologize, especially in public, as he's been told to do, there's actually a political cost to that, because it's a symbol of your defeat by another grouping. And that's actually politically expensive.
For me, there's always been a political chess game. For me, it will be the most, most devastating humiliation for Ace Magashule to come out publicly and apologize. I think even the court judgments against him will be much better because that will actually, at the end of the day, admit defeat. And I don't think Ace Magashule would want to do that. Yes, we've seen some in certain corners where some of his supporters is actually encouraging to come out and support, and maybe that will call for some leniency from the African National Congress. But as I've indicated, it's a little bit too late, but also the moment if he comes out and apologizes, then that sends a message to say, actually the so-called RET group, because remember, Magashule is the face of the so-called RET faction within the African National Congress. And when you've got such a powerful leader suddenly apologizing, that was saying the wrong signal and message to his supporters. And in politics, you don't openly, accept defeat.
It's really interesting because actually there's a lot happening this week. We've got the National Working Committee meeting now. We don't know if there'll be a statement afterwards. There isn't always after an NWC meeting, but sometimes there is. And then it's Wednesday, former President Jacob Zuma in court, and Ace Magashule said last week that the whole of the Free State, I think was the quote, will be there to support the former president on Wednesday. I haven't looked at the latest traffic report from the Free State to KwaZulu-Natal, but I don't think the road is that busy.
Yeah, well, it's shocking. That for me was very shocking, but once again, it's an indication, it's indicative of a very desperate leader because, if you refer to the entire Free State, not even the ANC in the Free State will support Ace Magashule or the former president. You've got certain people who are fully behind Ace Magashule for certain reasons. Yeah, it is an issue of a party more than 100 years, its own rules are at stake, but yet you still get members who rally behind an individual. And it's democracy, it's okay. But for somebody to come out and say the entire Free State, I don't even think our way. People like us now have to go and board a bus and go and support somebody that I strongly believe that has a lot to do with the situation that we currently find ourselves in. And it just shows you, if you've got a leader like Ace Magashule becoming a president, which is a likelihood within the African National Congress, what are we going to experience? Because power, you can't mix power with rationality. Sometimes absolute power corrupts the mind, and it's a clear indication that, yeah, you've got a leader who have been in power and still believe that by the flick of a finger, the people will follow him. And now I think you've totally missed the point that an entire province will now go and support the former president facing serious corruption charges. And I think one of the charges that at the end of the day have led to some of the fundamental problems that we experience in our country. I don't think that rational South Africans or Free Staters will now suddenly go and support the former president.
So then the future, the outlook, I think is the word that the analysts use, the outlook for Magashule is what? Perhaps the National Working Committee starts a process to discipline him formally. Perhaps that results in expulsion. He faces criminal charges still. Does he try and start a new party on his own? Does Tony Yingeni go with him?
No, most definitely not. I can't see that Ace Magashule and those close to him will form their own parties. It's cold outside of the African National Congress, and it has been proven. And I think somebody like Ace Magashule is fully aware about that. There has been certain nuances about him being part of the ATM, but I don't believe, even if they did try that, but they have realized without the African National Congress, then they can kiss all access to resources. They can kiss that goodbye. What is going to happen? Some action will be taken by the African National Congress, but perhaps Ace Magashule will also take something from the book of the former president if we see what is happening with his court cases. And I'm going to say this with the utmost respect We had one individual which will go down in the history books of South Africa, South African politics, who have actually played our, judicial system to his own advantage. He's preaching that he wants his day in court, but yet he is actually using delaying tactics. So Ace Magashule can also come in and appeal against whatever decision the African National Congress is taking. But remember, we are going to the local government elections, and I don't think all what is happening currently will have a huge impact on the outcome of the local government elections, but definitely it will have a huge impact on the outcome of the elective conference of the African National Congress, which is due next year, and it will definitely, be a huge factor whether Ace Magashule will be a member in good standing when that particular conference is around the corner.
Professor Matabisi, political analyst, do appreciate the time at the University of the Free State. Thanks very much indeed.